Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome to my Basics in Chess series. So in this series we follow opening principles, middle game strategies and the endgame strategies. Today we continue with this middle game strategies with this so-called provocative move in the middle game. And the provocative move is really a tricky move. Well, it's sort of a move in which you place your piece. It's most often the knight or the bishop on a really seemingly dangerous square, and you basically allow your opponent to play a tempo against your piece, but this tempo creates new weaknesses in your opponent's position. This tempo can also create uh, can also change the dynamics of pawn structures, which you see in a couple of examples how important it is to change the dynamics maybe in this central pawn structures. And also it can sometimes improve the position of your own pieces. So it means you place a piece somewhere allowing your opponent to attack you, then when your opponent attacks you, we have a new position which is important for you because you weren't satisfied with this previous position. So let's see now an easy example of this provocative move. We have now the provocative move in the stage, in the opening stage. We have here the common King's Indian setup, and here bishop on e2, we have e5. And the problem here is that white is not reacting. He plays here castling. So you see white wants to stay after maybe e takes d4, knight takes on d4, to have a very powerful central control with his pawns and with his knight. So we have now the so-called Maroczy bind, which can be sometimes really annoying to play against. So that's why we have to play this provocative move. So it's a really common theory. The most often move is the move knight on c6, but it's really a provocative move because here after maybe d takes e5, knight takes on e5, we have now maybe really a simplified position here, and it's perfectly fine. We have now the static center position. We don't have anymore this dynamics in the game, so we are changing now the dynamics. And if your opponent tries here the move d5, here again you can play the move knight on e7, and we have now a static position again. Now we don't have any more this dynamics in the center, so that's why here this knight on c6 was really provoking this d5 move, and that's why here the position has changed, which is of course perfectly fine. And we can now continue with this so-called block pawn structure in the center, so we can now coordinate our attack. We have at least a clear plan. So okay, this is now a provocative move which is really common just in an opening stage, but I wanted to show you now some good examples from famous games. Here it's a game played by Bukhuti Gurgenidze against the legendary Mikhail Tal, and Mikhail Tal played the provocative move knight on g4. The best maybe way for white is here to take bishop on with the bishop with the knight on g4, bishop takes on g4, and maybe here knight on c4 can be played, bishop on c8. Here bishop on f4 is very important because you're attacking this weakness on d6. And here one of this continuation can be here maybe bishop on f8 and then bishop on a6. I'm not saying who is gonna win this game, but the problem is after knight on g4, well, white made a mistake and he played the move h3. Because of this provocative move, now it changes really the pawn structure around white's king. It creates new weaknesses because it's very important to have this h2 pawn. Now you have dark square weaknesses, and here Mikhail Tal played well, one of his immortal sacrifices. Knight takes on f2, king takes on f2, and now queen on h4. You cannot of course go on g1 because you lose the rook. Here bishop king on f1 was played, and now bishop on d4 with the preparation to play checkmate. Here knight on d1 was played. Now very tricky move, queen on h3. You cannot take of course, then you get checkmated by these two bishops. So that's why here bishop on f3 was played and Tal simply took. And I'm not going to show you the whole game. I hope you realize that now we have really a powerful attack. We have a new position, and I'm gonna show you all of this PGNs in the description below, so you can analyze these games for yourself. I just wanted to show you this provocative move. Really, it really changed now the dynamics of the game because of this move h3. It allowed now really Mikhail Tal this immortal knight sacrifice, because now we don't have any more this h2 pawn. So you see here we have many dark square weaknesses around white's king. So let's see now another example. Here it's a game played by Boris Velinsky against Ilya Rabinovich. Here the problem from black's perspective, of course, that white has the bishop pair. Black has a good diagonal, and in the last move here, bishop on h4 was played, which was really sort of a provocative move again. We have now this opposite side attack game, which means white will coordinate the attack here on the queen side, because here we have the castle king on the queen side, but here white has also the castle king on the king side. So that's why we have sort of an opposite side game, and in which you're trying basically to open as fast as you can. Here maybe from black's perspective, the king side somehow with the move g5, and from white's perspective you will try some minority attacks here with the pawns, so maybe a4, a5 and similar ideas. But here really black fell for this trick. He fell for this he tried really to play this tempo against this bishop, because the bishop is a little bit annoying here on this diagonal, and black tried the move g5. But here you see now we have the improvement of the position of this provocative move, because white didn't even react to take here, because then it would be very good for this knight to come somehow into the game. Here we have g takes f4, bishop takes on f4, and now f takes e5, but now we have bishop on g3, and now we have a very good position for the bishops, because the bishops are now on very active diagonals. You see, with this provocative move we have now powerful diagonals, and now it's our time to attack. Now basically black will defend all the time. First of all, he had to play the move b5 because the a6 pawn was hanging. That's why rook on e1 was played, queen takes on c3, but now very important move a4. Queen on d4, we have king on h1. It doesn't matter, we just improved the position of this king. But the more important is that we have really this powerful bishop. You see the importance of this bishop. You see on the square h4 this bishop wasn't so powerful, so that's why after bishop on g3 we had a perfect diagonal. We have a new diagonal, but it was all possible because we allowed some tempos with this pawn on g5. We allowed your opponent to create an attack, but now the position has really changed. Now we have new positions, new attacking possibilities, and really a great position for this bishop. Queen takes on a4 was played, but now c4. You see, we're just trying to open the position here. Knight on c5 was played, queen on e5, of course, with the preparation to checkmate on c7, queen on a5. Now queen takes the knight on c5, rook takes the bishop on d3, c takes b5, rook from h to d8, and now rook on c1, very important move. Rook on d7, we have rook on e1, a takes b5, rook takes on e6, very powerful move. Rook on d1 doesn't bring you so much, because then we can again bring back the rook. That's why here queen on d2 was played, and now queen takes on c7, rook takes on c7, but now rook takes on c7, and you see how important this diagonal for this bishop is now. But that was all possible here in the continuation. King on b8 was played. Now we have some discovered checks. King on a7 was played, rook on a1. We have rook on a6, rook takes on a6. We have king on b7, rook on b6. We have rook on c8, and now rook on a8, king on d7, and now rook on d8. Very important move. If you take here rook takes on rook on d6, and then we have a favorable endgame. So, but as said here, very important, allowing your opponent this g5 move, which it seems that black has now a good position, because he will open the g file, maybe the f file for the rooks. And but here, as I said, white didn't react. He now has a good position for this bishop. This bishop is very powerful on this diagonal, so it was really a great positional player here by white. So let's see now another example. It's a common provocative move in the King's Indian in the so-called Petrosyan system. Here, after bishop on g5, we are waiting our opponent to play the move h6, which of course creates a tempo, and you don't want to give up the bishop pair immediately here in an early stage of the game. That's why bishop on e3, again playing another provocative move, knight on g5, g4, again allowing your opponent to play some moves with the knight. Now bishop on d2, and now f5, h3, knight on f6. This is still common theory of the King's Indian, but now after e takes f5, we have g takes f5, and now queen on c1. This is very important because now we have a powerful attack against this pawn on h6, so that's why f4. You see all of these provocative moves forced now black to do some weaknesses. Now we have some lighter weaknesses here. That's why g3 was played. We are trying to crack the position here, and again we are allowing black to do another tempo. Again this knight on f3 is a little bit provocative, forcing your opponent to do something with his pawns, but now it just improved the position of the knight on h4 here. e3 was played, we have f takes e3, but now f takes g2 g3 was played, and now knight on g6. You see how powerful now this knight on g6 is. g2 was played, okay, rook on g1 had to be played, bishop on h3, and now queen on c2. We have knight on a6 castling, knight on b4, queen on b1, here queen on d7, and in this position here white had the opportunity to take the rook. As I said, I'm not going to show you the whole game. I just wanted to point you out that while placing these pieces on some dangerous squares, you forced your opponent to do something with his own pawns, with his own pieces, and now it really changed the dynamics of the game. We are up the exchange now. Basically what we want to do is battle against this pawn somehow. We have possibilities to play maybe bishop on f3 and similar ideas. So if we grab this pawn, of course this is completely winning here for white. So let's see now another example. It's a game played by Magnus Carlsen against Fabiano Caruana. Here Magnus Carlsen played the provocative move knight on e3, and here knight on e3 and knight on f3. Of course these knights are vulnerable to your opponent's attacks. But that's not the problem. If you try something like e4, that doesn't bring you so much, because after d takes e4, you see this provocation to place these pawns forward gives now white the opportunity to play a dangerous attack with knight on g5. If you try knight on e5, then queen on c2 is very dangerous. Here, if you try bishop on b7, here rook on d1, and it's really a compact position. We have a great attack with all of our pieces. If you try something like d4, again, if you try to battle, you see we have now a new pawn structure. We have changed the pawn structure in the center. It gives you now the opportunity to fix the knight on c4. We have now backward pawn weakness, and here e4 can be played, but now you have knight on d6, very powerful with a double attack. Of course you cannot take, because it will simply take this rook, and we have also possibilities then after that bishop on f7. So you see it doesn't bring you so much in the game. Caruana played bishop on b7, and again Magnus Carlsen played d4, again a provocative move. If you take, you see he takes d4, then knight on d4. We have now perfect blockade. This bishop is blocked out by its own pawn, so that's why Caruana had to play the move e4. But after knight on e5, knight takes on e5, d takes e5, rook takes on e5, we have now a new position in which we have queen on d4, and we have created a powerful blockade against this backward pawn. Let's see the continuation. Rook on e7 was played, now rook on c2, rook on d7. I'm not going to explain you now the whole moves. I just want you to see is that Magnus Carlsen has now a perfect attack. Although we have two connected pass pawns in the center, they are really weak, they are vulnerable to our attacks, and Magnus Carlsen, after grabbing some pawns, managed to win the game eventually here. After taking queen takes on b4, we have now two connected pass pawns, which was of course the huge advantage here for the world champion, and he managed to win the game eventually. So as said, I hope you realize these ideas. Provocative move. It seems that you place your piece on a dangerous square, forcing your opponent to do something, to maybe play some h3, h6 or g6, or all of these moves by pawns, just in order to kick your piece away from this active square. And then when that happens, we have a new position, and you can play on these weaknesses, on this changing of pawn structures in the center, and you can also improve your pieces, because your opponent has played some attacks, but that attacks also created new weaknesses in his position. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll continue with this middle game strategies in my basics in chess series. Meanwhile, you can watch my other basics in chess videos with some opening principles, middle game strategies and the end game strategies. And you can also watch my how to spot chess tactics videos, in which I show you a good way how to recognize tactical possibilities in the middle game. And you can also subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.